It's cut and dry, isn't it?
Yeah, the international nationalists against the globalists.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing a sort of unity of the European right in a way, aren't we? Lots of, I even saw people in France sharing.
Complimenting.
Yeah, sharing solidarity. And I think that that's going to happen more and more.
Yeah, international racism, cool. White supremacist movements globally. Yeah, not a surprise there. All the angry Marine Le Pen supporters who suddenly didn't get to see their little fascist queen come to rise probably do have time to go onto the internet and be like, oh yeah, solidarity with you racists, you're doing fucking God's work. Let's get rid of all these invaders.
6,000 police have been mobilised because of fears of more riots across the country. There are reports up to 30 protests are planned for Wednesday. The Prime Minister has promised communities will be kept safe. Keir Starmer said he had assurances that there were adequate officers in place to cope if violence flared up. Here's our political correspondent, Damien Grammaticus.
It's just over a week since these riots began. Violence, first in Southport, spreading to other parts of England. Now, for those who've taken part, the legal consequences are starting to be felt. This morning in Liverpool, 3 men who've all pleaded guilty to violent disorder are due to be sentenced. Yesterday, police chiefs were summoned to Downing Street for the second emergency coordination meeting in 2 days. The Prime Minister says more sentences will be handed out in the coming day.
Yes, I am proud to announce that we have a 6th viewer on Rumble. So we have 6 Rumble viewers. We have about 400 YouTube and 210 Twitch, but we have 6 on Rumble. We're taking over Rumble. That's right. That's right. You random person who stumbled upon this. You're getting lefty pilled right now in real time. You're becoming more communist.
Over 400 people now have been arrested. 100 are being charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message to anybody involved, either directly or online, that you are likely to be dealt with within a week, and that nobody, but nobody, should be involving themselves in this disorder.
Some have already appeared in court. This was 20-year-old Liam Gray, arrested.
They arrested a Tory councillor's wife for incitement. Wow.
In Rotherham on Sunday. He denied the charge against him. A list circulating online has suggested more than 30 locations could be targeted by rioters.
They were only given a few months, and the Stop Oil protesters got 5 years. It's so striking, right? It's like, hey, by the way, did you try to burn down a hotel because you thought there were refugees inside that you could murder? I don't know. That doesn't feel like a slap on the wrist kind of a charge.
Today, police in London issued a warning saying, "We know about the events planned by hateful and divisive groups across the capital. They've made their intention to cause disruption and division very clear. We will not tolerate this on our streets." After the rioters targeted hotels housing asylum seekers, some groups who work with refugees have been told they are at risk. One organisation in Merseyside says it has closed its offices but will try to protect the premises today.
We will also be creating, I suppose, what I would call a peace line, for want of a better expression, so that we and the local community and the priest from the local church, which is part of our building, that we can all come together to demonstrate that we believe that we should have hope in the future rather than putting up with hate.
Disperse immediately, as force is about to be used against violent individuals.
Sir Keir Starmer last night said those who felt threatened would be kept safe, but it's a severe test for a government that's been in office for just a month. Damien Grammaticus, BBC News, Westminster.
I thought this was a good video.
I mean, I almost don't know how openly to speak here, because on the one hand, I want to be a journalist and I want to offer dispassionate analysis of what's going on. And on the other, I'm a person of colour living in this country. And I'm looking at these images where people are quite serious about wanting to burn asylum seekers to death. I'm seeing video of a child holding her mother's hand, dancing down the street in Northern Ireland chanting "Packies out, Packies out." I'm seeing video of a black man attacked in the centre of Manchester by a whole gang of white racist thugs. And I'm asking myself the same questions that people of colour up and down the country are asking themselves, which is, how safe are we here? How strong are the bonds of belonging, the consensus around being a multiracial, multicultural society? Will they be strong enough to keep us safe in the long run? And for the first time, I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know. I feel that things could get worse.
That's really fucking sad, and obviously horrifying to see. I have spoken to a handful of people in Britain who have said that, like, once again, it's one of those things where there have been anti-fascist rallies that are getting, you know, huge numbers that are outnumbering the amount of, like, you know, violent racist hooligans and white supremacists that are causing a lot of this violence and chaos. And then a lot of people are tuning to, you know, who's responsible, because there's a lot of far-right individuals, Nigel Farage, for example, Sargon of Akkad, who is now rebranded as the Lotus Eaters, who have been years just professing and creating content that is always derogatory towards Muslim immigrants, Arab immigrants, you know, any people of color arriving into the country, typically men, and taking any crime that they can find or get a headline on and just amplifying that on blast, on repeat, spreading the story that there's roaming gangs of violent Muslim rapists who are attacking white women. I'm sure you've all seen the AI art that floods the internet, always showing, you know, an AI image of a crying white woman surrounded by scary brown people who are all laughing. Although, you know, the funny thing about those ones, because there's so many of them, it's always like, everyone looks like they're having a great time. She kind of just looks like she's not fun at parties, that's all. Like, why is everyone else laughing in every one of these pictures, you know? But every right-wing fucker, yes, has a role to play in consistently pushing for this. It's the same thing with Ben Shapiro and the mass shooter in Canada, the mosque shooter. It's one of those things where once it was revealed that the social media presence and history of this mass shooter was consuming regularly Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, the two people who were constantly vilifying Muslims, right? Saying that the myth of the radical Muslim minority and the fact that, like, there's no such thing as a Muslim who's not going to enact violence upon you and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, yes, a percentage of your population, of your viewers and audience will get incredibly afraid. And of that percentage, a smaller percent, thankfully, but even then, will want to commit acts of violence. Then, once there are multiple people committing acts of violence, once it's like, holy shit, it's happening. This is it. This is what we've always been told is going to happen. We have to take back our country. Britain for the British. All that kind of shit. Well, then, yeah, you have all these fucking racist, white supremacist hooligans running around the streets, causing all of this chaos and destruction. And then, boom, do the very people who sowed the seeds of this want to take any responsibility, tone down the rhetoric?
At no point in the last week, or in the previous 30 years, have I ever encouraged the use of violence? Have I ever encouraged the use of anti-democratic means? And yet, you know, you get the internet and people saying things on the internet. We have senior Labour politicians like Annie MacDonald saying, I wanted the riots to happen. Mm-hmm. We have former Conservative MPs like Anna Soubry saying that I orchestrated the riots. We have LBC presenters like James O'Brien calling them the Farage riots. I have had nothing to do with any form of street violence now or at any point in my career. At no point in the last...
And that's the plausible deniability of it all, right? I may have been saying horrifying things that, you know, these immigrants are, you know, rapists coming here to rape white women and that the only person who can stop them is you. But I meant through democratic means, through Brexit, you know, through organized political action. I didn't mean take to the streets and try to burn refugees inside of, you know, hotels. Obviously, I've never said that out loud. Not once did I say that out loud. So did that happen? Can you blame this on me? You know, at the end of the day? And again, when there's a whole bunch of far-right assholes like this doing this consistently, everyone else gives each other plausible deniability. Was it him or was it some American pundit who was talking about, hey, have you seen what's going on in the UK? Yeah, they're fallen. The whole place apparently is some kind of Muslim nation now. It's really, really scary. Completely appalling. Douglas Murray condemns riots raging across the UK. Interesting. In February 2006, Murray said, conditions for Muslims in Europe must be made harder across the board. Europe must look like a less attractive proposition. Murray's former co-worker at the Center for Social Cohesion, James Brandon, interpreted this comment as calling for the collective punishment of Muslims. So this is Sargon of Akkad's new channel. He's rebranded. You know, if ever you're starting to be, I don't know, demonetized or censored or not getting the same reach you once did, maybe good to separate yourself from the whole, you know, far-right racist UKIP, people want to throw fish at you kind of thing, to the Lotus Eaters, the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. And of course, their coverage of this, as you can probably tell, the Troubles is what they're calling it, with just such a wild thing, again, to compare Irish resistance to British colonization, to British racists trying to oppress Muslim and immigrant minorities in the country because they've been so brain poisoned that all their problems, which a lot of them are caused, by the way, by a lot of their own fucking policies. But yeah, fuck that noise. It's not our policies. It's not Brexit. It's not that. None of that is a disaster. It's 100% these roaming gangs that are entering the country to rape white women. That's the problem here, and that's why, you know, two-tier society targeting the English. The Muslims strike back, targeting the English.
There's been a long list of protests announced at the start of last weekend. I think these were all announced leading up to the Friday of last weekend. Here's Tommy sharing a bunch of the actual protests going on.
This guy strikes me like as a more straight Michael Knowles.
All across the UK here, and that's not even all of them. So GB News reported that there are a total of 35 demonstrations, many of them peaceful protests in an actual sense, not the CNN sense, but many of them did become riots, did become violent. And because of a militant left-wing counter-reaction to this, there were lots of clashes that need not have happened, I think. So The Guardian was saying anti-racists mobilised to counter.
That's the problem. It was the anti-fascists. If they just weren't there and no one was stopping the people trying to beat people in the street or rip them out of cars or stop them from entering certain streets because they weren't white enough or burn down libraries or burn down hotels with refugees in them, well, then none of this would have happened, you know?
Protests at unprecedented far-right rallies, as well as lots of people trying to basically drum up Muslims to get on the street. And here's one of the examples.
Yes, see, these leftist organizations were trying to organize to get Muslims out there to then fight the bad people.
And we're going to look at some more real-world examples of where they were in great numbers on the streets, counter-protesting and attacking the British people. So the first one I wanted to mention, and the one that started things off really, was Sunderland, which began on Friday night, and they were one of the first. Here's a video of some people in the street. There are lots of videos, by the way. I think that there was an overturned car. There was lots of other things. There was some riot police. I obviously can't cover everything because if it's going on in 35 different places, there's so many videos, there's so much to cover. I'm going to have to inevitably miss some stuff out. But I've been following it all weekend. There they are, hitting a man on the floor.
Farage cites Andrew Tate as source. Okay, hold on, let me see this. Farage cites Andrew Tate as source of questions about alleged Southport attacker. Nigel Farage has said he was referring to claims made by influencer Andrew Tate when he asked whether the alleged Southport attacker was known to UK security services. In a video posted July 30th, the day after the attack that killed 3 young girls, Reform UK leader Mr. Farage said there had been reports that the suspect was monitored by security services. Referring to the police description of the attack as a non-terror incident, he added, "I just wonder whether the truth has been withheld from us. I don't know the answer to that. I just think it's a fair and legitimate question." Speaking to the LBC on Tuesday, he declined to apologize for his comments, saying the disorder followed the Southport attack had been so bad because we weren't told the truth. He said his comments about the security services have been referring to posts from prominent folk with a big following. So, if you don't know the full story, there was a horrifying attack where several children were stabbed to death. The attacker was a very troubled 17-year-old who was a UK citizen, born, yes, British, technically born within British, but because his parents were immigrants from Rwanda, and of course he was not a white person, immediately this got associated with, again, this concept of roving Muslim gangs taking over Britain. And yeah, the concept of a child being stabbed is horrifying and will obviously ignite a lot of passion and anger within people. I was quick to point out yesterday, by the way, that there was a stabbing of a young black boy in the UK by a white man who did it with a saber and killed him, and there was no riots that were taking place after that. This was very distinctly some white children were murdered by a non-white 17-year-old and who was also a British citizen. But again, don't let any of that stand in the way of a good race riot narrative that, again, people like Nigel Farage, people like Sargon of Akkad are more than happy to throw fuel onto. Same with Elon Musk. Elon Musk just non-stop from the comfort of his fucking mansions, just sitting there all ketamined out, hitting buttons on his keyboard, just being like, yes, this is because of the immigrants taking over the country. Yes, the civilizational clash with inferior civilizations as they overtake Britain and destroy what was once British. Tate, the former kickboxer, has risen to prominence as an influencer and is awaiting trial in Romania on charges of human trafficking, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women. Mr. Farage said there were some stories online from prominent folk with a big following, Andrew Tate, etc., suggesting that the man had crossed the English Channel in a boat in October 2023. I didn't believe any of it. I hadn't got a clue. He added, I asked a very simple question. Was this person known or not? Asked what, like, you cowards. This is the same thing with Michael Knowles doing the, like, we want to eliminate transgenderism from society. I didn't say that I want to exterminate trans people. I'll sue you. You can't print that. That's not the headline. I said I want to eliminate transgenderism from society. In this case, like, no. I didn't actually suggest that this was, again, someone who had arrived from another country to go stab little white children. That's not what I was suggesting. I was just asking a question. And a very huge, prominent, account, Andrew Tate, had also asked a similar question. Was the person who had done this, did they arrive through the English Channel? And I'm just putting that out there. And now that all this has happened, people are saying that I'm somehow partly responsible. I'm not at all. Mr. Farage went on, I didn't believe any of it. I hadn't got a clue. The teenager who's been charged in connection with the Southport attack was born in Wales to Rwanda parents in 2006. Police confirmed that he was born in Cardiff in a statement the day of the attack, but cannot release his name for legal reasons until a judge lifted the anonymity.
The truncheon in the legs, it blocks the police from viewing through the riot shields. And basically, that got a lot of attention was both a police station and a community centre got torched, and there were also attempts to do the same to a mosque. And I think the police particularly focused on protecting the mosque, which is unsurprising, really. But yes, here's a video. I think this is the community centre there that they've got as the thumbnail where firefighters put it out. But
oh no, it would have been just as horrible. Absolutely, it would have been horrible. It's like I get the provoking incident to this is an absolutely horrifying tragedy. And in addition to that, rather than allow families to grieve or allow people, the space that they need to be able to process something of this magnitude, it just immediately went to racism. Hardcore racism, and then people just being like, oh my god, a Muslim immigrant who traveled down the English Channel and arrived here to stab white children. This is everything we ever warned you about. The country has fallen. We must destroy everything. Like that's exactly what happens.
It pretty much burnt to the ground. And another place that kicked off quite early was Liverpool. So before there had been any protests or any rioting, there was this. Basically, a man called Mohammed was stabbed on a train. So I'm going to read exactly what it says in the...
So I'm more curious what their take is going to be after getting through these headlines.
This library as well, this is something that the left have been drawing a lot of attention to, that they trashed a library and they're like, these far-right thugs. But I think the justification that I've seen going around for why it was targeted, not saying it should have been targeted, by the way. The reason that they targeted, yes, was that it was supposedly connected to handing out Qurans or giving lessons on Islam or something along those lines. So that's what has been going around.
Like, you fucking monsters. Again, the cowardice on display. Like, sometimes people, they get really pissed off when they watch my streams because, like, they're, I guess, very, very far left. And they're like, Lance, why aren't you advocating for the just position? We need to overthrow immediately the government. Dude, advocate now. Tell your fans you have a platform. I was like... Am I going to be, as a Canadian citizen, traveling to America right now to stand shoulder to shoulder with Americans as we firebomb buildings in an attempt to destroy the empire and liberate everyone from the shackles of capitalism? Am I going to be doing that? Or am I going to be a coward who's just streaming from his keyboard, who's just like enjoying inciting people to the point of committing violence, or to the point of actually getting hurt or hurting others, while I just sit back and go, whoa. And then after it all goes down, sit there and be like, hey, when I said that, that was just a bit. I was fully joking. I didn't actually say you should firebomb the Walmart. I didn't mean that. I didn't think y'all would actually do it. Well, I mean, yeah, this probably plays a lot more into some other things that aren't related to me in any way, shape, or form, you know? I mean, not only just fact of the matter, it's just blatantly TOS. I'm sorry, you're not going to get revolutionary vanguard, statements being given to you on the Amazon.com Twitch streaming service. If you want to involve yourself in direct action that you think may not be Amazon friendly, then that's something that you should be organizing with groups completely independent of watching streamers for entertainment. You're watching streamers for entertainment. And personally, for me, what I do is I do participate in the anti-Palestinian demonstrations that take place. I do direct action. I do do organizational planning and work with organizations like the Democratic Socialists of Vancouver, Vote Socialist Vancouver, all those other orgs to again try and enact change in a variety of ways, supporting feeding programs, stuff like that. But like, yeah, no, I'm literally not firebombing Walmart. So why the fuck would I tell people on my stream to do that and then sit back and then be like, whew, wild that, you know, all those people ended up doing that thing that I was talking about. Or if I just sat here and lied to you 24/7 about like Sargon of Akkad and everything that his organization, if I was like, the Lotus Eaters literally have children in their cupboards. This is an organization of pedophiles where they store children to extract their adrenochrome. And every single time that they're talking right now, they're speaking in code about harvesting babies. All of the baby organs are inside this, like you have to find where they live right now to free the children. If I was lying about that every single day on the stream, and all of a sudden someone did something, it's like, oh, well, my favorite streamer Lance told me that apparently this place was filled with children and all this kind of stuff, and I had to take matters into my own hands. Then, like, after the fact, it's like, so it's kind of wild that you spread that rumor, and then people who are fans of you ended up doing something about it. What do you have to say about this? Oh, yeah, again, it was a bit. It was a joke. I didn't really think that they were hiding babies behind the counters. I just don't know how they would have pulled that off, to be totally honest with you, right?
And there were also looting of shops. The justification that they provided for this was that they were looting.
I think we should use the word
shops.
reason rather than justification.
The reason.
Sorry to be pedantic, but
that's all right. The reason that they gave was that these shops were.
Again, I've said this before, but I grew up on military bases that were constantly being targeted by the IRA. And you would have a warning system saying, how dangerous is it today? How likely is it the IRA are going to commit a terrorist attack? And so to get to this point is just amazing to see, frankly.
Mm-hmm. And I also like that Palestinian.
Amazing to see.
Flag, rainbow flag, trade union flag.
Yeah, you can see what they're opposed to.
Versus the Union Jack and the Irish flag.
Yeah.
It's like it's
cut and dry, isn't it?
Yeah, the international nationalists against the globalists.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing a sort of unity of the European right in a way, aren't we? Lots of, I even saw people in France sharing.
Complimenting.
Yeah, sharing solidarity. And I think that that's going to happen more and more.
Yeah.
There's also this video.
Yeah, international racism, cool. White supremacist movements globally. Yeah, not a surprise there. All the angry Marine Le Pen supporters who suddenly didn't get to see their little fascist queen come to rise probably do have time to go onto the internet and be like, oh yeah, solidarity with you racists. You're doing fucking God's work. Let's get rid of all these invaders.
As well, if I can get it playing. There we go. You see, and
because things, we can go back to that a second. Because
being put up
I'm
for
more
free.
interested in the commentary than we've already watched a lot of clips.
Essentially attacked our way of life.
But are they defending people or attacking people in the street?
Defending people who have essentially attacked our way of life.
But are they defending people or attacking people in the street, I guess?
Well, we will see that very shortly. So here, hopefully I can play this without the men that
give them.
They tried to target a mosque. They targeted houses, individual people's houses, and there's also a video of protesters just punching a random passerby, which I do not support whatsoever.
Well, we don't support any of this, any of this violence. We don't
yes. And they also set fire to a police car here. There we go.
Again, you could take this out of context and say, okay, Black Lives Matter, Palestine protest, which one is it? Oh, it's the English working class riot now.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Middlesbrough here, and this is a Sky News reporter.
I'm smoking mimosas, Skittles, but I'm taking some.
Okay, you want me to save it for later?
I was just trying to do the whataboutism, but then multiple buttons started going, and then a roving old Andrew Callahan clip popped up, and I was like, oh no, gotta get out of there. That guy's a monster now. This sucks.
Well, you'll have to watch Carl's segment later.
But yeah, as cowardly as it gets, you 24/7 are basically promoting the idea of British nationalism and identity, right? And the concept that, you know, Britain is essentially a set of series of values, and those are, without so many words, about upholding what he considers to be British civilization, Western civilization. Again, dog whistles, yes. And then when violence erupts because you've spent just nonstop hours upon hours upon hours vilifying Muslims, vilifying immigrants, vilifying people of color, vilifying basically anyone who's not white within the country, and choosing to select them as the cause of all your problems. Like this it's not the policies, it's not Brexit, it's not that. None of this has anything to do with the reason the country is in shambles right now. It's because of these roving gangs of migrants. And yeah, a handful of fucking white supremacist racists are going to take action and going to try and burn mosques. They're going to try and burn down hotels they think have refugees in them, and then of course very quick to be like, yeah, but we condemn that, obviously, the direct violence, but certainly understand where they're coming from, obviously. You know, this country's been taken over. This is similar to, again, maybe the Troubles. That's what we would compare it to. And no one wanted to see what the Muslim strike back was.
Obviously, there have been lots of riots and protests to do anything, and they look like they're listening. There's lots of cars driving around a roundabout very quickly, and so lots of left-wingers turned out to protests that weren't actually real. You know, the EDL don't exist. So if there's information saying that EDL are protesting somewhere, it turns out that no one's going to turn up that mean to do them harm, had to drive through the crowd. It stopped initially, they mobbed it, started to focus of not cooperating with the police. And we've seen this on show, we've seen it.
Like all these new faces, because I've only covered the Lotus Eaters like I think like 10 times over the history of their channel, but I've always described the never-ending cast he assembles as like, I could only best describe them as people who look like they're Sargon of Akkad fans. And it's just like, without fail, if there's one consistent about every single person that he gets on his show to be like a regular co-host or something, that's like the best way I would describe them.
With the Muslim demonstrations in other areas where they're literally saying, we don't need you, we can defend ourselves, you know, leave us alone, you're getting in our way, basically. That is the sentiment that's being expressed by a lot of these people.
Insane.
Yeah, and what exactly do you think, like, you know, Muslims, people of color, people who are like terrified right now, not to mention, you know, white people who are anti-fucking white supremacists who are trying to help and worried about, you know, being targeted in the process? What do you think every single person there is thinking when they're seeing this kind of like initial slap on the wrist, considering the level and degree and severity of the violence, then the backlash that comes, and then the immediate like, okay, fine, we're going to go really hard. Keir Starmer is going to make an example of this. He's sending in vast amounts of police. They're going to be, you know, potentially charging some of the people with incitement to terrorism, stuff like that. What kind of message does all of this send? Are you safe within your own communities at any given time? If there is a misinterpretation of a crime where someone feels like, oh, we can blame Muslims for this, there's going to be crimes committed because they're not a monolith by Muslims in Britain. And if that's like at any given time, when that happens, all Muslims are suddenly going to be scapegoated into a singular group. Every single one of them is responsible. It's justifiable to now hit the streets, commit violence, like utterly disgusting behavior. But I think it's another aspect of like, you get a pass in a lot of ways as long as like he's been so much smarter about how he brands all this, right? Now it's no longer the racist Sargon of Akkad who pretends that he's like part black and has a whole laundry list of fuck ups and, you know, jokes about not wanting to rape women because they're ugly and shit like that. Like now it's the podcast The Lotus Eaters, were a respectable you know, news and politics and history you know, establishment media empire, and we simply seek to cover issues, you know, from a identitarian perspective about why the riots are happening.
All right, well, the third segment today, Cole, you thought we could be listening, Channel 4 News watching, Guardian reading, boomers. So, two-tier Keir, I mean, this is sort of the last symptom of it all, isn't it? Is that we end up with someone like Keir Starlin, two-tier Keir. It's sort of the end result of a long, many years worth of.
And honestly, it's just wild how people are so fucking detached from reality, how they think that like Keir Starmer is somehow like a leftist, like he's like a communist or a Marxist or a Stalinist. You know, like this is a center-right neoliberal, as milquetoast as they get, without question.
Decline, for want of a better word.
And what I find interesting about Starmer is he's essentially formally implementing the informal arrangement of the UK state up until this point. Yes, those communities are going to get special privileges against just unacceptable.
Tyranny is so concerning.
Mayor Sadiq Khan, who previously had defended the 9/11 attackers.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I mean, that literally
7/7 ones or
9/11. 7/7.
Criticise it. And then there's a clip of Keir in 2024 talking to... just the list goes on and on and on of all the different... I'm not even going to read out the list of all the different various attacks. Yeah. All the sort of an almost endless list of murders and sex crimes. According to Mr. Dunch, there's no legitimate concern.
It's more than that as well, because there are so many...
And they're back to doing the exact same thing. Again, it's doing this consistently. Like, to do this in the opposite direction, you would have to essentially take any crime committed by white people, right? And then every single time there was a crime committed by white people, you said that this was part of a pattern exhibited by all white people, and that it was only a matter of time before these crimes were going to be committed. And so that we need to now, together, really decide what we're going to do, and if we want to have a society in which white people are allowed to be a part of it, because they're so barbarous. It would appear that they have just committed so many vile acts, and here's a list of crimes, you know, and specifically I'm going to pick out crimes in which white people attacked non-white people and show you photos of it and show you photos of the victims and keep you very, very afraid of it and be like, yeah, this is because white people are coming for your children, they're coming for your non-white babies, they're going to be attacking you, like it's really, really scary. And by the way, I mean, we condemn all violence if anything happens from this, but also really scary. Look at these scary rapists and murderers, they're coming for everybody. And then you just continuously do this on repeat. Like right now you're getting, you know, exactly what you want. That's why he's making the coon face, because this is yes, beautiful. Oh yes, finally Britain's taking back Britain for the British. It's about time. Owen Jones had a very good response to the far right.
Now we need two things. We need an all-out war on racist scapegoating, which means taking on our media and our political establishments. We also need an all-out war on economic and social insecurity, which far-right extremists exploit by redirecting anger at all the wrong targets. But finally, a message for the far-right extremists terrorizing Muslims and people of color in this country. You're going to be defeated. You're going to lose. Your hatred of a society that is diverse and inclusive will never match our determination to fight for one that truly is. You feel that you have lost your country, and you are right. You have. You want to restore the past. Well, as the phrase goes, the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. The England of the past put children up chimneys, made workers toil 96 hours a week, deprived women of the right to vote and much else, dictated who we were allowed to love, made people pay for their healthcare, crowded people into dirty slums, and yes, openly celebrated its whiteness. People fought at great cost to fight those injustices, and yes, today our elites impose all sorts of injustices on this country. This is, after all, a wealthy society, where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, while millions of all faiths and none, of all ethnicities, are condemned to insecurity and hardship as a choice because of a broken economic system rigged in favour of a tiny elite. But across this country, people of all backgrounds live together, work together, sleep together, build families together. And yes, there are divides, profound divides. And yes, there is institutional racism, which imposes injustice and suffering on the lives of all too many minorities. But there are many millions of us determined to change that. And as you inflict terror on our streets, you will only strengthen our resolve to free this country of the racism that you relish and you thrive on. We will defeat your hate, and we will hold to account those who enabled you all this time without being challenged. That's going to change.
Just watch Robert Evans' podcast, Beyond the Bastards, on Tommy Robinson. Oh, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, that'd be good. Because Tommy Robinson's also like a complete piece of shit. There was photos of him just chilling on the pool while all these riots were going down, which is exactly my point. If you're inciting violence and stochastic terrorism through the constant dehumanization and vilification of these groups, and then people end up taking violence to the streets, it's the Alex Jones, right? Where you're like you're there, you're on the ground, you got a megaphone, like, oh, we're coming for you, commie bastards, we're gonna kill every one of you, we're gonna fucking hang Mike Pence, blah. And then like as soon as you get there, it's like, oh my God, we've been led astray. This whole thing was actually planned by Antifa. Turn around, comrades. We have to leave. I didn't incite any of this, kind of shit.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Voltimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.